Portland's housing market just split into two completely different games, and treating them like one will cost you a lot of money. Today, I'm showing you the neighborhood level data that statewide numbers will completely hide. So if you're buying or selling in 2026, the part of the market you're in changes everything about your strategy. Maine's statewide median price of around $399,000 tells you almost nothing about what's actually happening in Portland. Where the real story is a market splitting into two very different realities. So let's start with the numbers that really show what's going on. Maine's median home price sits right around $399,000 as of November 2025. But here's the thing, the statewide number doesn't tell you anything useful about Portland or the surrounding areas. Portland itself has a median listing price in the low to mid 600s all the way up to $700,000, which is much higher than the rest of the state. And when you focus on specific neighborhoods, you see two completely different realities forming at the same exact time. On one side, you've got neighborhoods that are holding super strong. Let me give you some real numbers. So Rosemont, for example, has seen prices stabilize in the high 500s to the mid-high 600,000 range, with hot homes moving in 6 to 14 days. The East End and Munjoy Hill are trading in the high 700s to well over $1 million, and homes are still seeing pretty steady demand. Downtown Portland sits in the high 600,000s to mid 700,000s. West End homes average high 500s to mid 600s for condos and well over $1 million for single families. These areas are staying competitive even when inventory goes up a little bit across the state. Now at the same time, you've got nearby areas showing a totally different pattern. South Portland's median home price has hovered in the low 500,000s, which is a slight decline year over year. Westbrook sits in the mid 400,000 to low 500,000 range, and days on market have stretched from 7 days last year to 27 days on average now. Some parts of Deering range from the mid 400s to the low 500s, depending on the smaller area. But here's what most agents won't tell you about inventory numbers, and this really matters when we talk about negotiation strategy later. The data shows that while Maine overall has 3.2 months of inventory right now, Portland's hottest pockets are still selling homes faster than the new ones are listed. Statewide inventory is rising. Maine now has a little bit over 3 months of inventory, up from the historic lows during the pandemic peak. The best way to understand months of inventory is if no new homes were listed, it would take 3 months to sell them all. That's absorption. But Portland's strongest pockets are still very, very competitive, while nearby areas are starting to soften a little bit. So pricing strategy, timing, and negotiation power completely depend on the market your property is in. Quick note before I start breaking down these two markets, if you're trying to figure out which Portland segment your target neighborhood falls into, or if you should be buying now or waiting until the spring, I work with buyers and sellers dealing with this exact split market every single day. And my contact info is in the description if you want to chat. All right, now let's get back to it. You can't manufacture walkability in Portland, and buyers know it, which is why these neighborhoods cost more, and the location itself protects those prices. So let's break down the high demand segment first. That includes the West End, Munjoy Hill, downtown, Old Port, East End, and the coastal adjacent parts of the peninsula. What makes these areas so hot right now comes down to a few specific things, and I see this every day when I'm working with buyers. First, it's lot size and how close everything is. These neighborhoods usually have smaller lots, but you're getting walkability access to basically everything. You can get shops, restaurants, galleries, and services without really needing a car, and that's pretty rare in Portland. Rosemont, great example. It's technically more suburban, but it's one of the most walkable areas outside of the downtown peninsula, and buyers are paying extra for that. Homes there are moving in roughly 38 days on average, but hot listings will fly off the shelf in under a week with multiple offers. That's not what a soft market looks like. Second, it's the flexibility and quality of life these areas give you. You're close to Portland, you still get a little bit of breathing room. Back Cove is a great example. You get access to the 3-mile Back Cove trail that loops around the water, and even though the lots are smaller, the price points are higher and range anywhere from the 500,000s for a fixer-upper to the high 800s, all the way up to millions of dollars. So you're getting a higher quality of life without giving up the convenience of being close to everything. Now, here's what makes these areas structurally different. There's limited land available. The peninsula's geography makes new development really hard and very expensive. You can't just build a bunch of new homes here whenever demand goes up. And the new construction pipeline in these areas is extremely limited. Most projects are focused on downtown condos or smaller infill development that's kind of scattered around. So even while inventory grows across the state, these neighborhoods still stay tight on supply. Let me put that in perspective. While Maine overall has 3.2 months of inventory, these high-demand neighborhoods are still absorbing homes efficiently. Rosemont still sees multiple offers on competitive homes. That means buyers are still dealing with competition, multiple offers, and super fast decision timelines. This segment acts like a high-pressure micro-market where prices stay strong even while the broader market moves towards a more balanced condition. So if you're buying here, expect competition. If you're selling here, you've still got leverage. Now let me show you what's happening just a few miles away because the contrast is wild. South Portland's luxury homes that sold in days during COVID are sitting now, and that shift tells you a lot about buyer priorities and how they've changed. So let's talk about the other side of the split. This includes Deering, inland zip codes, Westbrook, and big parts of South Portland. And I see this every day. These areas are cooling off, but that doesn't mean nobody wants them. It just means the way the market has worked in the past has now changed in a real way. South Portland is a great example. During the pandemic, South Portland took off fast. Buyers wanted to be close to Portland without paying full Portland prices, and they were willing to pay a premium price to get it. But now the market is showing real softening in pockets. Median prices have hovered in the low to mid 500,000 range, showing a slight year-over-year decline, and homes are taking longer to sell. But here's what's happening. There's less out-of-state demand. I remember losing multiple offers in the low $2 million range in Lovett's Field in South Portland during COVID to out-of-state buyers. Now homes are sitting in that area. The people who can actually afford these luxury homes typically aren't local, and that group has cooled off a lot. My guess is a lot of out-of-state buyers have pulled back, and that's putting downward pressure on prices in these coastal luxury areas when they were red hot just 2 years ago. But it's not just South Portland. Westbrook saw median days on market jump from 7 days to 27 days. Prices have stabilized in the mid 400,000s to low 500,000s, but more importantly, buyer behavior has totally changed. They're not typically rushing into offers. They're comparing listings, seeing different homes, they're negotiating, and they're asking for concessions in some markets. That's totally different than what we saw in 2022 and 2023. Also, the seasonality data I'm breaking down later changes when you should list in these softer segments, and it matters more than most people think. Now, here's the big structural difference. Unlike the Peninsula, inland areas and suburban towns have larger lots, more single-family homes, and less geographic constraint. That gives buyers more choices and sellers less pricing power. If you want to work and live in Portland but also want 5 acres with horses, that's not happening on the Peninsula. But if you're willing to move inland, towns like Westbrook, Cumberland, even parts of Deering, you get a little bit more space, and those options can exist as you move further out of Portland. And the extra flexibility in supply takes pressure off of the prices a little bit. So what does that mean in real life? Price adjustments are more common, concessions are showing up in negotiations, and homes that would have sold in days are now maybe spending a week or 2 on the market. This is a real shift in buyer leverage, and honestly, it's a welcome change after 5 years where sellers had the upper hand during the pandemic era. This segment acts more like a normalizing market where buyers have some leverage, sellers have some leverage, inventory is available, and negotiating is back. If you're selling here, you've just got to price it right and be ready for a longer days on market than you might have seen 3 or 4 years ago. If you're buying here, you might have time to actually compare listings and negotiate some terms. Talking about buying here, let me tell you something. You could be competing with 3 other offers in Rosemont, while a nearly identical home in Westbrook sits for a week with not a lot of interest. Same week, same price range, totally different leverage. Your strategy completely depends on which part of the market you're going after. If you're buying in strong submarkets like Rosemont, Old Port, East End, West End, for example, you need to know what to expect. Expect competition. Multiple offers are still happening for premium property, and homes are moving fast. There aren't many concessions available as well. And the decision timelines are tight, so if you're shopping in these areas, you need to be pre-approved and ready to move at the drop of a hat. Clear criteria matters a lot. Buyers who don't have a focused plan usually lose deals to people who are more prepared. Now, pricing in these areas still has to be accurate. Underpricing can speed up the sale and yield multiple offers, but it could also leave some money on the table. Overpricing just means your home's gonna sit. And because prices are staying firm, your negotiation leverage often shifts away from price and into the terms. So focus on things like inspection contingencies, closing timelines, earnest money commitments, financing, things like that. Those are the levers you can actually pull outside of price. But if you're buying in a softer submarket, like parts of South Portland, Westbrook, outlying Deering neighborhoods, you're in a completely different environment. Inventory gives you room to compare. You can take some time, look at multiple active listings, and figure out what the real market value is. And things like the days on market and recent price changes become your biggest clues for leverage. Let me give you a real example. If you see a home that's been listed for 45 days and it dropped in price by $25,000, there's a big buyer opportunity. The seller is showing motivation. The market is basically telling you that the home was overpriced at first, and now they're adjusting to reality. You can negotiate harder in a situation like that when there's no competing buyers. And here's something most people don't realize about timing. Winter slowness is a real thing in Maine. We're heading into a more seasonal market than we've seen in years. Also, make sure you understand the total cost of home ownership. A lot of buyers in softer markets are looking at older homes with lower price tags. But if you're buying a home that needs a new roof, updated HVAC, maybe some foundation work, the cost of these updates can actually cancel out the lower purchase price. So look really closely at the condition, take inspections seriously, and negotiate based on what the home really needs, not just what it's listed for. Spring usually brings more demand back, but current conditions still favor buyers more than 2022 to 2024. So if you're buying now, you're in one of the best buyer environments we've seen in 5 years. Buyers can pick a strategy based on what fits their goals and budget. You can accept competitive conditions to get into high demand neighborhoods, or you can use reduced competition in softer areas to negotiate better terms and conditions. And that takes us straight to sellers, because everything I just told buyers is what you need to be ready to counter. If you're pricing your South Portland home based on what your neighbors sold for in 2023, you're about to learn an expensive lesson about ignoring what the market's doing right now. Let me break it down. In these high demand areas like Rosemont, downtown, East End, West End, the key is to launch with strong presentation. Some home staging and professional photography, they're not optional. Homes only get one real first impression, and in competitive markets, the first impression is everything. Price it right from the start. In tight markets, underpricing can leave some money on the table. Overpricing doesn't create enough interest to spark competition. You need to hit the sweet spot where you get top dollar without scaring buyers away. And expect early offers. Homes in these segments are getting absorbed in about 14 to 29 days. So you really should be ready for offers the first week or two after you list. Now, if multiple offers show up, which they should in some of these hot areas, hold firm in negotiations. Use your leverage to lock in better terms and be proactive with HOA items or inspection concerns before you list the property. In competitive markets, problems found during inspections can just slow everything down. So getting ahead of disclosures and repairs reduces friction and helps the deal move more smoothly and helps you get top dollar. But here's the thing, if you're selling in softer areas like parts of South Portland, parts of Westbrook, even parts of Deering, your strategy changes a lot. You've got to price based on the current market, not past appreciation, because the market's shifted. Pricing off 2023, 2024 comps, it just doesn't work anymore. You need to look at what's active right now and price competitively against that inventory so you're not helping another home sell. Condition and presentation matter more than ever. When there isn't a scarcity-driven demand, the condition of your home is the biggest difference maker along with price. So think carefully about improvement return on investment. Strategic updates that reduce inspection friction, like roof repairs, getting your HVAC serviced, or foundation assessments, really can help you a lot more than just cosmetic upgrades. You've got to understand where your home sits compared to what's available right now. Are you priced above, at, or below similar listings? Because if you're 5% above the market in a soft segment, your home sits while other homes sell. And sitting costs you money through carrying cost, utilities, insurance, and opportunity cost. So here's my advice. Price for real-time value. A modest price reduction can create more showings and a faster sale. Letting a home sit for 60 days can cost you a lot more in carrying costs than accepting a slightly lower offer up front. And time the market strategically. Winter listings face headwinds. If you don't have a time-sensitive move, it may make sense to wait for the spring when buyer activity picks back up. Sellers who adjust strategy to their specific submarket and don't treat all of the Portland area like one market get better outcomes than the people relying on citywide averages. And I see this every single day with clients who either get it right or leave money on the table by ignoring the data. Portland's housing market is two totally different games with different rules, different timelines, and different outcomes. So if you're ready to navigate the split market and work with somebody that tracks these neighborhood level shifts every single day, email me. My email's on the screen and in the description. I'm working with buyers and sellers in both segments right now, and the strategy differences are a big deal. All of my contact details are in the description, and I also linked a video about the #1 mistake people make when buying in Maine. Watch it before you make any decisions, because the buyers who understand Maine's 4 seasons are the ones who actually thrive here long term. Thank you, and we'll see you there.